the most technical UFC heavyweight fighter of all time, Ciryl Gane, who moved like lightweight, and most powerful UFC fighter and current UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou, who hit like truck. It has been confirmed they are going to fight for the unification of UFC heavyweight belt on UFC 270. Francis Ngannou manager Marquel Martin confirmed the news in the Talk of Fight radio. UFC President Dana White reacted to the tragic death of BKFC fighter Justin Thornton. He said, "Fighter safety should be the main concern of every fighting organization."
Last thing for me, Daniel, it's not MMA related, but we did have a combat sports death with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just curious, kind of, I know it doesn't, I mean, are you concerned that things like that can impact the UFC and mixed martial arts as well? And do you have any thoughts about, kind of the role that the commission or the organization or what we can do to make sure this doesn't happen?
Well, let me start here. First of all, is anybody shocked? I mean, in bare knuckle fighting, I'm not a big fan, and I guess I would call it concern when I see some of our people when they leave here and go there, and it's like, oh my God. But when you look at this, we've been putting on fights for 25 years. I've done like over 7,000 fights with no serious injuries in the UFC, and we've had some broken bones, some bad broken bones, the shin bone being the worst because it just blows our mind when that bone breaks, and cuts. I mean that's what we have. But the reality is, when I talk about, this goes hand in hand with what we talked about with fighter pay and the money that we invest back in this sport. The number one thing to us is fighter safety. Fighter safety is a very big deal to us, has been since day one. We ran toward regulation. We do extensive pre, post fight medicals. We follow up afterwards with these guys. And I say this all the time. When you make sure that you've spent the right amount of money to make sure that you have healthy athletes competing, going into training, then during the fight, and then you make sure, the other night when Ortega fought, right? I walked into the octagon and I told his corner, I do not do an interview, do not talk to any media. I want you to go straight back. They're ready for you. They're gonna put him in an ambulance and take him out of here. Get him right out of there and get him whatever. Then I'm walking out of the arena and I hear him doing an interview with Rogan, I didn't want him to do an interview. I wanted him to leave and go. We do this all the time when we see guys that are whatever. And every year, we spend over $20 million on athlete medical, $20 million a year. Health and wellness or whatever it may be. And 25% of our athletes, we send to specialists. So a guy will come and his brain test won't come out. It'll be irregular. So we send him to a specialist. His heart, something was irregular with his heart. He goes and sees or she goes and sees a heart specialist. And we spend the money to find out, whatever it is that's wrong with them. And as a result of that, our pre-fight screening, throughout the last 20 years, we found 10 athletes that had life-threatening, medical problems with them, and that career-ending, that they shouldn't be fighting. That if they weren't in the UFC, they probably would have fought and they probably would have died. So, listen, this is and that doesn't include the Cleveland Clinic, which we've been doing for over 10 years now, studying fighters' brains and following up to make sure that these guys are safe. There's a lot of shit talk about us. Nobody does even remotely close to what we do in this sport. It's never been done what we do, and nobody ever will. It's just, so when you talk about, we shouldn't even be talked about in the same sentence as bare knuckle boxing. It's not even, it's two completely different worlds. And yes, we're very sorry to hear that this guy passed away. But you're never going to see any of these other organizations doing the type of health, safety, and medical testing that we do for our athletes.
Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder exchanged their harsh words to each other, and Tyson Fury denied to face up with Deontay Wilder on their final press conference before the fight.
Tyson, you're up.
Well, I've got a lot to say, actually. Here's something that I think I need to say. It's like, Wilder said that I only won the second fight because I cheated, but then he goes and changes his whole team and does all this extra training and trains as hard as he's ever trained and bring on all his team and all that. So I ask the question is, if I only won because I cheated, what was the point in changing everything and doing all this other work? Can anybody answer that question? I know he can't, doesn't have the brains to. So, no one can answer that question, can they? So, the fact that I've egg in your face is the word, that's what we say. And here's another one. He says he wants to do bad things to me and hurt me and do all this malice feelings, and he's got anger and aggression. Well, for those who hold a hot coal with the intentions of throwing it at somebody, guess what? They're the ones who's going to get burnt. I don't want to hurt Deontay Wilder. I just want to beat him in a fight. And he knows what he's saying's lies. And deep down in his soul, he knows that he lost. And he'll lose again. And he lost the first time, he lost the second time, and he's going to lose the third time. And guess what? After this fight, he'll be back working in that fast food chain that he was working at earlier on in his career. Because that's the only place he's going to be welcome.
It's easy to answer
Retirement for him.
It's
Retirement,
easy to answer your question.
Retirement, Dosser.
The answer to your question is why you changed for the first and second.
No, that ain't the answer to the question. That's another question. So that's not an answer. If I only won because I cheated, why do all this extra training? Because obviously you can beat me with the old training you was doing as long as I didn't cheat.
So ask yourself that question.
You got to ask yourself the question. If I've done all this cheating,
I see nervous energy.
Yeah, then why has he not prepared himself? He hasn't done any extra steps at all to stop me from cheating again.
Why you explain yourself?
I'm not explaining myself. I'm asking you the question.
You haven't denied any
allegations. What have you done
to this point?
I don't need to deny it because it's true.
You know what I'm saying? You haven't denied any allegations.
I had knuckle dusters on. I had a turbo jets on my feet.
You don't even want certain media in here to give you the tough questions. You have nobody to give you the tough questions.
And there's nobody in here that can ask me a tough question.
So, and let's get ready.
End of. And that's it. And there's no one in here can accept the fact that this little handed to him, not once, but twice, and he can't do nothing about it! Because he ain't man enough! That's why!
I accept with, look.
Tell him what to say, Shelley, come on. Tell him what to say, it's fine.
When I was in the condition I was in, I could have stopped the fight. I could have went back to my corner, but you know what? I'm a king, I'm a warrior.
You didn't look like a king when you was getting in that corner.
I accepted what I was going through to still fight you.
Yeah, you look like a dosser. You didn't look like a king.
And you still couldn't knock me out. You still couldn't
look like a dosser.
But guess what? If
you look like a dosser and I look like the king.
And you was in the situation
when you was in that corner getting your head punched, your trainer JD,
someone please
he done everything for Mark Breland. He saved your life that night.
Don't know.
You didn't want to sack him. You wanted to give him a pay rise.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Both of you. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
He needed a pay rise. He saved your life.